My sister's toast was a 10-minute list of my failures. I had the mic next. The microphone squealed with feedback as my sister Melissa finished her 10th minute of systematically destroying my life in front of 200 wedding guests. She just wrapped up the story about how I wet myself in 3rd grade during the Christmas play, complete with sound effects and a PowerPoint slide she'd somehow prepared, when she turned to me with that saccharine smile I'd learned to fear at age 5. And now, she announced, her voice dripping with fake affection, my beautiful little sister Emma wants to say a few words about me and David. The applause felt like nails on a chalkboard. I sat frozen in my pale pink bridesmaid dress, watching Uncle Pete wipe tears of laughter from his eyes while Aunt Caroline whispered something to her husband behind her hand. My mother's face was carefully neutral, the expression she wore when she was pretending everything was fine while dying inside. This was supposed to be different. For once, Melissa had asked me to be part of something important. When she'd called 6 months ago, crying about how she wanted me as her maid of honor, I'd actually believed we were finally going to have the sister relationship I'd always wanted. I'd spent $800 on this dress. I'd organized her bachelorette party in Miami. I'd written a beautiful toast about childhood memories and how happy I was that she'd found David. That toast was currently crumpled in my lap, destroyed by my own white-knuckled grip. Instead, I just endured a public execution disguised as sibling love. She'd covered my failed engagement to Marcus. Emma thought a magic show was an appropriate proposal venue. Spoiler alert, the only thing that disappeared was their relationship, my struggle with my master's thesis, 3 years to write 200 pages. I've seen grocery lists with better research, and somehow even managed to work in the time I'd gotten food poisoning from gas station sushi and spent her birthday party in the bathroom. But it was the finale that really got me. The story about how I'd been fired from Morrison and Associates last month. Except in Melissa's version, I wasn't let go due to budget cuts during a company restructuring. No, according to my beloved sister, I'd been caught conducting personal business during work hours, which she somehow twisted into making it sound like I was running an OnlyFans account from my cubicle. The crowd ate it up. Even David's grandmother was chuckling behind her oxygen mask. Emma's always been the dreamer in our family, Melissa had concluded, adjusting her $3,000 Vera Wang gown. While some of us work toward our goals, she's still figuring out what she wants to be when she grows up. At 28. Isn't that precious? Now she was standing there, radiant in her manipulation, holding out the microphone like it was a gift. Like she hadn't just spent 10 minutes explaining to everyone I'd ever cared about why I was a disappointment to the family gene pool. The thing is, Melissa had always underestimated me. She saw me as weak, easily controlled, the little sister who would always take whatever punishment she dished out and come back for more. But she'd made one critical error tonight. She'd handed me a microphone in front of everyone who mattered to her, right after teaching me exactly how low she was willing to go. I stood up, smoothed my dress, and walked toward her with the biggest smile I could manage. Thank you so much, Mel. That was unforgettable. The microphone felt heavier than it should have as she placed it in my hand. I cleared my throat and looked out at the sea of expectant faces. The hotel ballroom suddenly felt smaller, more intimate. Perfect for what I was about to do. When Melissa asked me to be her maid of honor, I began, my voice steady despite my racing heart. She told me she wanted someone who really knew her. Someone who'd been there through everything. Someone who understood the real Melissa. A few approving nods from the crowd. Melissa beamed beside me, probably thinking I was going to take the high road despite her verbal assassination. And I do know the real Melissa. I know her better than anyone in this room. I paused, letting my eyes sweep across the guests. There was Mrs. Henderson from our old neighborhood, the one who still sent Melissa Christmas cards addressed to sweet little Melissa. There was David's boss, Mr. Carmichael, who'd apparently been so impressed by Melissa's moral character that he'd fast-tracked David's promotion. And there, in the front row, sat our grandmother Nana Rose, who'd rewritten her will last year to leave her vintage jewelry collection to Melissa because she was the responsible granddaughter who made good choices. They had no idea what they were about to learn. Take this wedding, for instance. You all think this is such a romantic whirlwind courtship, right? 6 months from first date to I do, so passionate, so spontaneous. I gestured toward the happy couple. But the truth is, Melissa had to get married quickly because... Emma. Melissa's voice cut through mine, sharp as glass. She stepped closer, her smile faltering. Maybe we should. Oh, don't interrupt me, sis. You had your 10 minutes. I turned back to the audience. Where was I? Oh yes, the rush to the altar. See, it wasn't love at first sight that had Melissa planning this wedding at breakneck speed. It was panic. I could see David's face in my peripheral vision, confusion creeping across his features. Sweet, trusting David, who worked 60-hour weeks at the accounting firm and still found time to volunteer at the animal shelter on weekends. David, who told me just last week how grateful he was to have found someone as honest and faithful as Melissa. It was panic because 3 days before she met David on that dating app, she found out that her married boss, you know, Mr. Patterson from the marketing firm, had finally decided not to leave his wife after all. After 18 months of promises. The room went dead silent. I could hear the air conditioning humming. 18 months of sneaking around hotel rooms during lunch breaks. 18 months of believing she was going to be the second Mrs. Patterson. 18 months that ended when his wife got pregnant with their 3rd child. Melissa's face had gone white. Emma, stop. But I was just getting started. The words were flowing now, each one carefully chosen for maximum impact. So naturally, when David came along, stable, honest, completely smitten, well, that was perfect timing, wasn't it? Nothing helps you get over being someone's dirty little secret like becoming someone else's pristine bride. I could see people starting to shift uncomfortably in their seats. David's mother had her hand pressed to her chest. Uncle Pete wasn't laughing anymore. But that's not even the best part, I continued, my voice getting stronger with each word. The best part is what happened just 2 weeks ago, when Mr. Patterson started texting again. When his wife found out about the affair and kicked him out. Melissa lunged for the microphone, but I stepped back smoothly. When he told my dear sister that he was finally ready to be with her. The gasp that went through the crowd was audible. I watched David's face crumble in real time, his mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. But I wasn't done. Not even close. You want to know what my sister said to him? I continued, feeling a rush of power I'd never experienced before. She told him she needed time to think. 2 weeks before her wedding to David, she told her married ex-lover that she needed to figure out her priorities. That's not, Melissa started, but her voice cracked. Oh, but it is. Because I was there, Mel. Remember last Tuesday when you thought I was at my job interview with Henderson Marketing? I came back early because I forgot my portfolio. I heard the whole phone conversation through your bedroom door. I could see our parents in the third row, Mom gripping Dad's arm so tightly her knuckles were white. Dad looked like he was about to be sick. 25 years of telling everyone what a perfect daughter Melissa was, how she never caused them a moment's worry like her flighty younger sister. I do love you, Richard, I said, mimicking Melissa's breathy phone voice perfectly. I always have. But David's so stable, and the wedding's already paid for. Give me until after the honeymoon to figure this out. David stood up so abruptly his chair fell backward. Is this true? For the first time in my life, I watched my sister completely speechless. Her mouth moved but no sound came out. The confident, articulate woman who'd just spent 10 minutes destroying me was reduced to a stammering mess. David, I can explain. Is it true, Melissa? His voice carried across the silent ballroom. Are you in love with someone else? The silence stretched like a taut wire. In the back, someone's baby started crying, and the sound seemed to break the spell. People began whispering frantically to each other. And you know what the really beautiful part is? I said into the microphone, addressing the room again. Mr. Patterson texted her yesterday. During the rehearsal dinner. While David was giving that sweet speech about how lucky he felt to marry his soulmate. I pulled out my phone, grateful that Melissa had always been careless with her devices. She left her phone on the bathroom counter last night. The text came in while I was helping her touch up her lipstick. Conference room 412 at the Marriott is available Monday through Friday next week. Same time as before. I love you, Mel. The betrayal on David's face was almost enough to make me feel guilty. Almost. Emma, please. Melissa's voice was barely a whisper now. Tears were streaming down her perfectly made-up cheeks, leaving tracks through her foundation. You don't understand. Oh, I understand perfectly. You wanted everyone to see what a failure I am. You wanted to make sure they all knew that you're the successful sister, the one with her life together, the one who makes good choices. I gestured to the crowd with my free hand. Well, here's your sister with her life together, everyone. Here's those good choices you've all been admiring. Our grandmother Nana Rose was being fanned by Aunt Caroline. Uncle Pete was filming everything on his phone. Mrs. Henderson had her hand over her mouth in shock. And Melissa, perfect, composed, always in control Melissa, was falling apart in her $3,000 dress while 200 people watched. But something was shifting in David's expression. The hurt was hardening into something else. Something that looked almost like relief. You know what, Emma, he said, his voice cutting through the chaos. Thank you. That wasn't the reaction I'd expected. David walked toward us, his movements deliberate and calm in a way that made the hair on my arm stand up. The room held its collective breath as he stopped directly in front of Melissa. Thank you, he repeated, looking straight at me. Because now I don't have to pretend I didn't already know. The microphone nearly slipped from my hand. This wasn't part of my plan. David was supposed to be the innocent victim, the betrayed groom who'd storm out in righteous fury. He wasn't supposed to be thanking me. What? Melissa's voice cracked on the single word. David's laugh was bitter. Did you really think I was that stupid, Mel? That I wouldn't notice you checking your phone every 5 minutes? That I wouldn't see R. Patterson calling at midnight when you thought I was asleep? The crowd was riveted now, craning forward in their seats like they were watching the season finale of their favorite drama. Mrs. Carmichael had her phone out, probably texting David's mother who was sitting 3 tables away looking like she'd seen a ghost. I hired a private investigator 2 months ago, David continued, his voice carrying clearly through the ballroom sound system since I was still holding the microphone close enough to pick up our conversation. Got photos of you two at the Sunset Motel on March 15th, April 3rd, April 20th. Should I continue? My mouth went dry. I thought I was dropping the biggest bomb of the evening, but David had been sitting on nuclear weapons. The conference room at the Marriott? David pulled out his own phone. That was creative, I'll give you that. Very professional. The investigator got some great shots through the window. Amazing what a telephoto lens can capture from the office building across the street. Melissa sank into her chair like a deflating balloon. Her carefully constructed facade was crumbling in real time, and for the first time in my life, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Then why, she whispered. Why go through with this? David's smile was razor sharp. Because, sweetheart, you signed a prenup. And according to the infidelity clause your lawyer obviously didn't read carefully enough, I get to keep everything. The house you've been redecorating for 6 months? Mine. The joint savings account you've been contributing to? Mine. The life insurance policy you insisted we take out? Well, that stays mine too. I stared at him, seeing David, sweet, animal shelter volunteering David, in an entirely new light. He played the role of devoted fiancé perfectly while setting up his own revenge plot. Plus, he continued, turning to address the room, I needed witnesses. Legal witnesses who could testify that Melissa Hartford entered into marriage under fraudulent pretenses while actively conducting an extramarital affair. Our father stood up abruptly. Now wait just a minute. Oh, sit down, Robert, David snapped. Your daughter tried to con the wrong guy. Did you know she's been telling Patterson that she'd divorce me after a year and split the assets with him? There are text messages. Lots of them. The room erupted in gasps and whispers. I caught sight of Nana Rose being helped out of the room by 2 of my cousins, her face gray with shock. The photographer was still snapping pictures, probably getting the story of his career. But it was Melissa's expression that froze my blood. She wasn't looking defeated anymore. She was looking at me with pure, concentrated hatred. This is all your fault, she hissed, rising from her chair. I was handling it. I had it under control until you. Until I what? I shot back, adrenaline surging through my system. Until I gave you exactly what you gave me? I was protecting you, she screamed, her voice breaking. Everything I said about your pathetic failures, that was me trying to make them stop asking when you'd get your life together. making them laugh instead of pitying you. The lie was so audacious, so perfectly delivered, that for a split second I almost believed her. Protecting me? My voice came out strangled with disbelief. You told everyone I was fired for running some kind of sex business from my office. Because the truth is worse. Melissa shot back, mascara now streaming down her cheeks in black rivers. You want them to know you were actually embezzling? That you've been skimming money from client accounts for 8 months? The words hit me like a physical blow. The microphone slipped from my numb fingers, hitting the floor with a screech of feedback that made everyone wince. That's not, I never, but my voice died as I saw the triumphant gleam in her eyes. Even cornered and humiliated, Melissa was still playing chess while I was playing checkers. David's investigator friend wasn't the only one who'd been doing research. Should I tell them about the $47,000, Emma? About how you've been moving tiny amounts from dormant accounts, thinking nobody would notice? She turned to address the crowd, her voice gaining strength. My sister didn't lose her job because of budget cuts. She lost it because Morrison and Associates discovered her little creative accounting project. I felt the walls closing in. Half the room was staring at me with shocked faces, the other half was pulling out phones to capture every moment of our mutual destruction. But the worst part was seeing the disappointment creeping into my parents' eyes. The only reason she's not in jail, Melissa continued, is because I begged Richard Patterson to intervene. His law firm handles Morrison's legal work. He made it go away quietly, for me. The pieces clicked together with sickening clarity. The real reason she'd been so confident about her affair. The reason Patterson had been so willing to leave his wife. Melissa hadn't just been sleeping with him, she'd made herself indispensable by involving him in covering up my crimes. I've been protecting this family's reputation for years, she said, straightening her veil with shaking hands. Covering for Emma's mistakes, making excuses, cleaning up her messes. And this is how she repays me. Stop. David's voice cut through her speech like a blade. Just stop talking, both of you. He walked over and picked up the microphone, his movements precise and controlled. When he spoke again, his voice filled the ballroom with absolute authority. Here's what's going to happen. This wedding is over. The marriage license won't be signed. Melissa, you have 30 days to remove your belongings from my house before I change the locks. He paused, letting his gaze sweep across the stunned faces in the crowd. As for the embezzlement allegations, Emma, I'd suggest you get a lawyer. A good one. Because while my soon-to-be ex-fiancée thinks she's been protecting you, what she's actually done is create a paper trail of conspiracy and obstruction of justice. My legs nearly gave out. David wasn't just destroying Melissa, he was taking me down too. Patterson's been recording your phone calls, Melissa. All of them. Including the ones where you discussed covering up Emma's theft in exchange for keeping him away from his wife. David's smile was arctic. Amazing how pillow talk can become evidence when one party is wearing a wire for federal investigators. The room erupted into chaos. People were standing, shouting, pushing toward the exits. I saw Uncle Pete still filming everything, his face lit up with the glow of his phone screen. Our parents were trapped in their seats by the crowd, Dad's face purple with rage, Mom sobbing into her hands. But all I could focus on was the sound of Melissa's breathing, rapid and shallow, like a trapped animal. You set us up, she whispered, staring at David with something approaching awe. This whole thing, you set us both up. David adjusted his tie with casual precision. I learned from the best, sweetheart. You taught me that sometimes the only way to win is to make sure everyone else loses first. The hotel security was moving through the crowd now, probably trying to restore order. But it was too late for that. We'd all gone too far to ever come back. The next few minutes felt like being trapped inside a snow globe that someone kept shaking. Hotel security was trying to corral the guests, but people were already streaming toward the exits, phones pressed to their ears as they called everyone they knew. I caught fragments of conversation as they passed, embezzlement, affair, federal investigators, each word hitting me like shrapnel. I was still standing frozen at the head table when I felt a hand grip my elbow. Detective Sarah Chan, David's cousin, was suddenly beside me in her navy dress and sensible flats. I'd met her exactly once, at the engagement party, where she'd made polite conversation about the weather. Emma Hartford? Her voice was professionally neutral now. I think we need to have a conversation. My mouth went dry. Am I under arrest? Not yet. But I'd strongly advise you to come with me voluntarily before the circus gets any worse. Through the crowd, I could see Melissa being surrounded by 3 people in dark suits who definitely weren't wedding guests. Her face had gone chalk white as one of them spoke quietly in her ear. David stood 20 feet away, watching it all with the satisfaction of someone whose chess pieces had just executed a perfect endgame. How long have you known? I asked Detective Chen as she guided me toward a side exit. About the embezzlement? 3 weeks. About tonight's entertainment? She glanced back at the chaos behind us. David briefed me yesterday. Though I have to admit, your toast was more thorough than we expected. The hotel's conference room felt sterile and too bright after the romantic lighting of the ballroom. Detective Chin gestured for me to sit across from her at a generic wooden table while she pulled out a digital recorder. Before we start, I want you to understand something, Emma. Your sister isn't the mastermind she thinks she is. I looked up sharply. What do you mean? Patterson's been cooperating with the FBI for 6 months. Insurance fraud, money laundering, tax evasion, his law firm is dirty as hell, and he's been singing like a canary to avoid federal prison. She leaned back in her chair. When Melissa involved him in covering up your theft, she accidentally made herself a federal co-conspirator. The room tilted slightly. But she was trying to help me. Was she? Or was she making sure you'd be too grateful and too scared to ever cross her? Detective Chen's expression was almost pitying. Emma, your sister has been systematically isolating and controlling you for years. The job references she sabotaged, the boyfriend she convinced to break up with you last Christmas, the graduate program that mysteriously lost her application. Stop. My voice came out hoarse. That's not, she wouldn't. She's been creating your failures, then swooping in to clean them up. Classic manipulation. Detective Chen tapped the table with her pen. The embezzlement was just the biggest mess yet. One she could hold over you forever. I thought about Marcus's sudden change of heart last winter, how he'd stammered through some speech about me not being marriage material right after Melissa had taken him aside at our family Christmas party. I thought about Columbia's admissions office claiming they'd never received my portfolio, even though I'd hand-delivered it to Melissa to mail through her law firm's express service. But the money, I said weakly. I did move that money. $47,000 in total. All from accounts Melissa specifically flagged for you to handle. Detective Chen pulled out a tablet and swiped through several documents. Accounts belonging to Patterson's clients, who were already under federal investigation. She set you up to steal dirty money, Emma. The conference room door opened, and David walked in, still in his tuxedo but with his bow tie hanging loose around his neck. He looked older somehow, like the events of the evening had aged him years and hours. How much did she hear? He asked Detective Chen. Enough. She stood up. Emma, I need you to think very carefully about your next words. You can either be a victim who was manipulated into committing crimes, or you can be a co-conspirator who helped your sister obstruct a federal investigation. The choice you make right now determines whether you go home tonight or spend the next 5 years in prison. Through the conference room's window, I could see police cars in the hotel parking lot, their red and blue lights painting the night in alternating colors. Somewhere in this building, my sister was probably having a very similar conversation with federal agents who were significantly less sympathetic than Detective Chen. What do you need me to do? David sat down across from me, his expression unreadable. Tell us everything, Emma. Every conversation, every favor she asked for, every time she helped you out of trouble. Because if you think tonight was brutal, you haven't seen anything yet. Outside, I could hear car doors slamming and voices calling to each other in the parking lot. Our wedding guests were scattering into the night, carrying the story of our family's destruction to every corner of our small town. And somewhere in the back of my mind, a terrible thought was forming. What if this had been Melissa's plan all along? What do you mean, her plan all along? Detective Chen leaned forward, her eyes sharpening with interest. I stared at the conference room table, my mind racing through memories I'd never questioned before. The maid of honor thing. She called me 6 months ago, crying, begging me to be part of her wedding. But Melissa doesn't cry. She doesn't beg. David's jaw tightened. What exactly did she say? That she'd made mistakes with me over the years. That she wanted to make it right. The words felt bitter in my mouth now. She said she'd been thinking about our relationship and realized she'd been too hard on me. That having me as her maid of honor would show everyone how much she'd grown as a person. Detective Chen and David exchanged a look that made my stomach drop. Emma, Detective Chen said carefully, when did you first move money from those client accounts? February 15th. The date was burned into my memory. Melissa had just gotten engaged, and she came to visit me at work. She brought lunch, which she never does. We ate in my cubicle and she was asking all these questions about my job, how the accounting system worked, which accounts I handled. And when did you start having financial problems? I closed my eyes, forcing myself to remember. January. My car needed a new transmission, $3,200. Then my landlord raised my rent by $400 a month because of market adjustments. And my student loan payment somehow doubled because of an administrative error. Let me guess, David said grimly. Melissa offered to help, but you were too proud to take money from her. The memory hit me like a slap. Melissa sitting in my kitchen that night, offering to write me a check, her voice full of sisterly concern. You work with all those numbers every day, Em. Isn't there some way to just borrow a little? Just until you get back on your feet? Oh God. I put my head in my hands. She suggested it. She's the one who said I could move small amounts temporarily and pay them back before anyone noticed. And I bet she offered to help you cover your tracks, Detective Chen said. Make sure the transfers looked legitimate. She said her boyfriend worked with lawyers who handled corporate accounts all the time. That he could advise me on how to make it look like routine maintenance transfers. My voice was barely a whisper. Richard Patterson. She introduced us at a coffee shop near my office 3 days later. David stood up abruptly and began pacing. She orchestrated your financial crisis, convinced you to embezzle, then used your crimes to blackmail Patterson into covering for both of you. Jesus Christ, Emma, your sister played everyone. The conference room door opened again, and a man in an expensive suit walked in with a briefcase. His silver hair was perfectly styled despite the late hour, and his eyes had the sharp intelligence of someone who'd built a career on other people's desperation. Miss Hartford? I'm attorney Mitchell Barnes. Your parents hired me to represent you. Detective Chen frowned. That was fast. Your father called me from the parking lot 20 minutes ago. Mr. Barnes sat down and opened his briefcase with practiced efficiency. Before we continue this conversation, I need to speak with my client privately. Actually, I said, surprising myself with how steady my voice sounded, I want to hear what Detective Chen has to say first. What happened to Melissa? Detective Chen glanced at Mr. Barnes, who nodded reluctantly. She's been arrested on federal conspiracy charges. Patterson wore a wire to their meeting yesterday. We have her on tape discussing payment schedules for keeping you quiet about the money. Payment schedules? She's been blackmailing him, Emma. The affair was just leverage. She's been taking $5,000 a month from Patterson since March in exchange for not reporting him to the state bar for helping cover up your embezzlement. Detective Chen pulled out her phone and played an audio clip. Melissa's voice filled the small room. Richard, darling, Emma's getting suspicious about why Morrison's hasn't pressed charges. You need to transfer another $10,000 to my Cayman account before she starts asking questions we can't answer. Patterson's response was barely audible. Melissa, this has to stop. If the FBI finds those accounts, then you better make sure they don't, hadn't you? The recording ended, leaving us in dead silence. She's been stealing from both of you, Mr. Barnes said quietly. Using your crimes to fund her own offshore accounts while planning to disappear after the wedding. I thought about the rushed ceremony, the expensive dress, the honeymoon tickets to a non-extradition country that she'd mentioned casually last week. The pieces were finally falling into place, and the picture they formed made me physically sick. The toast, I whispered. She knew this was all going to come out tonight. She wanted to destroy my credibility first, make sure no one would believe me when the truth came out. David stopped pacing and looked at me with something that might have been respect. But you destroyed her first. We destroyed each other. I looked around the room at these strangers who now knew more about my family than people who'd known us for decades. The question is, what happens now? Mr. Barnes cleared his throat and pulled out a thick folder. What happens now depends entirely on how cooperative you're willing to be, Emma. The FBI has enough evidence to charge you with embezzlement, conspiracy, and money laundering. You're looking at 5 to 8 years in federal prison. My hands went numb. But I was manipulated. Manipulation isn't a legal defense, he interrupted. However, your value as a witness against your sister and Patterson could significantly reduce your sentence. The question is, are you willing to testify against Melissa? Through the conference room window, I could see news vans pulling into the hotel parking lot. Channel 7's satellite dish was already extending into the night sky like some kind of electronic flower blooming in fast forward. How did the media find out so fast? I asked. David's expression darkened. Uncle Pete livestreamed your entire toast on Facebook. It's been shared 4,000 times in the last hour. #WeddingToastFromHell is trending on Twitter. Detective Chen showed me her phone screen. The video had already been picked up by 3 gossip blogs and a local news station. I watched myself, grainy and pixelated, destroying my sister's life in real time while 200 people cheered me on. There's more, Mr. Barnes said grimly. Patterson's wife filed for divorce 2 hours ago. She's claiming she had no knowledge of his criminal activities, and she's demanding full custody of their children based on his dangerous associations, meaning your sister. The door opened again, and this time it was my parents. Dad's face was red and blotchy, his bow tie hanging undone around his neck. Mom looked like she'd aged 10 years since I'd seen her in the ballroom. Emma Catherine Hartford, Dad's voice shook with rage. What the hell have you done to this family? Robert, please, Mr. Barnes stood up. Your daughter needs support right now, not accusations. Support? Mom's voice cracked. Do you know what's happening out there? Mrs. Henderson just called me. The story's already on the evening news. They're calling it the Wedding Toast Massacre. I wanted to sink through the floor. Mrs. Henderson, who'd taught my Sunday school class for 6 years. Who'd written recommendation letters for both Melissa and me. Who'd probably never look at our family the same way again. There's something else, Detective Chen said quietly. We found additional evidence during our search of Melissa's apartment an hour ago. She pulled out an evidence bag containing what looked like a small notebook. Your sister's been keeping detailed records of her manipulations. Not just you, other people too. There are at least 6 other individuals she's systematically destroyed over the past 3 years. My stomach dropped. Who? Your college roommate, Jessica Chen. The one who mysteriously lost her internship at Goldman Sachs after Melissa put in a good word for her? Detective Chen flipped through pages in the notebook. Melissa actually called them and told them Jessica had a drug problem. I remembered Jessica's breakdown junior year, how she'd spiraled into depression after losing what should have been her dream job. How Melissa had been so sympathetic, so supportive, bringing her soup and tissues while she cried. Marcus Torres, your ex-fiancé. Melissa convinced him you were cheating by creating fake dating profiles in your name and sending him screenshots of the conversations. The room started spinning. 3 years of thinking I wasn't good enough for Marcus, that I'd somehow driven him away with my neediness and insecurity. And David, Detective Chen continued, looking at him with what might have been sympathy. She didn't just manipulate you into this wedding. She's been systematically sabotaging your other relationships for 2 years, clearing the field so you'd be available when she needed an exit strategy. David's face went completely white. Sarah Rodriguez. The architect from Denver. Car accident that wasn't an accident. Melissa paid someone $2,000 to slash her brake lines. The silence in the room was deafening. Sarah's in a wheelchair because of Melissa? David's voice came out strangled. He gripped the back of his chair so hard his knuckles went white. She told me Sarah left because she couldn't handle long distance. That she'd met someone else in Denver. Detective Chen nodded grimly. According to the notebook, your sister visited Denver 3 times last fall. Always when Sarah was working late at the Morrison building downtown. The brake line tampering happened in the parking garage on October 15th. I watched David's face crumble as he processed this. Sweet Sarah, who'd brought homemade cookies to our engagement party last year and spent 20 minutes showing me pictures of the sustainable housing project she was designing for homeless veterans. Sarah, who'd been so excited about moving back to Chicago to be closer to David until her accident changed everything. There's footage, Detective Chen continued, pulling out another evidence bag with a flash drive. Melissa didn't know about the security cameras in the garage. We have her on video for 12 minutes, working under Sarah's Honda with a toolkit. Mom sank into a chair, her face gray. This can't be real. Melissa wouldn't hurt people. She's always been the responsible one, the one who. The one who what, Mom? The words exploded out of me. The one who's been destroying people's lives for fun? The one who turned me into a criminal so she could steal money and frame me for it? Dad stepped forward, his finger pointed at my chest. Don't you dare try to make yourself the victim here, Emma. You stole that money. You made those choices. Choices she was manipulated into making, Mr. Barnes interjected firmly. Robert, I understand you're upset, but attacking Emma isn't helping anyone right now. Detective Chen's radio crackled to life. Chen, we need you in interview room B. Patterson's asking for a deal. She stood up, gathering her files. Emma, I need an answer. Are you willing to testify against your sister? Because Patterson's about to throw both of you under the bus to save his own skin. Through the conference room window, I could see more news vans arriving. Channel 12, Fox News, even what looked like a CNN truck. The hotel parking lot was turning into a media circus, and we were the main attraction. What would happen to Melissa if I testify? I asked quietly. With the evidence we have? 25 to life, probably. The brake line tampering makes this attempted murder. Add in the money laundering, conspiracy, and fraud charges. Detective Chen shrugged. She'll die in prison. Dad made a choking sound. Despite everything, despite what she'd done to me and to Sarah and to God knows how many other people, Melissa was still his golden child. The daughter who'd never disappointed him, never caused him sleepless nights or worried phone calls. She's still family, Mom whispered. Emma, she's still your sister. I thought about Jessica, broken and defeated, dropping out of school because she couldn't handle the shame of losing her internship. I thought about Marcus, who'd looked at me with such disgust the day he'd called off our engagement, convinced I was cheating on him with half of Chicago. I thought about Sarah Rodriguez, 26 years old and paralyzed from the waist down because my sister needed David to be single. No, I said quietly. She stopped being my sister the day she decided to destroy my life for money. Mr. Barnes nodded approvingly. Detective Chen, my client is prepared to cooperate fully with your investigation. Detective Chen paused at the door. There's one more thing you should know, Emma. The wedding tonight? Melissa never planned to go through with it. She's had a plane ticket to Grand Cayman booked for 3 weeks. One way, under an assumed name. She was planning to disappear tomorrow morning with Patterson's money and leave David at the altar. The final piece clicked into place. The rushed ceremony, the expensive dress she'd only wear once, the toast designed to humiliate me so thoroughly that no one would believe me when the truth came out. She'd planned to destroy me publicly, then vanish before anyone realized she was the real criminal. But I destroyed her first. And somehow, that felt like the only victory I was going to get. The conference room door burst open without warning. A woman in a charcoal suit strode in, her FBI badge gleaming under the fluorescent lights. Behind her, 2 more agents flanked the doorway like sentries. Special Agent Rebecca Torres, she announced, her voice carrying the kind of authority that made everyone sit up straighter. We need to discuss Richard Patterson's latest confession. Detective Chen looked up sharply. What confession? The one where he claims Emma Hartford was the mastermind behind the entire operation. Agent Torres dropped a thick file on the table with a resounding thud. According to Patterson, your sister was just following your instructions, Emma. You're the one who identified the vulnerable accounts, you orchestrated the money transfers, and you blackmailed him into covering it up. The blood drained from my face. That's not true. He has recordings, Agent Torres continued, pulling out a small digital device. Phone conversations where you allegedly gave him detailed instructions on how to manipulate the Morrison and Associates accounting system. Shall we listen to them? My parents went rigid. Dad's face cycled through confusion, hope, and terror in the span of seconds. Mom gripped the edge of the table so hard her wedding ring clicked against the wood. That's impossible, Mr. Barnes said firmly. My client was the victim of manipulation, not the perpetrator. Agent Torres pressed play. My voice filled the room, tinny but unmistakable. Richard, you need to make sure the transfers happen during system maintenance windows. Emma showed me exactly when the automated monitoring goes offline. I felt like I was falling through the floor. That was definitely my voice, but I'd never had that conversation. I'd never even spoken to Patterson on the phone. Wait. David leaned forward, his expression sharp with concentration. Play that again. The part about Emma showing her when the monitoring goes offline. Agent Torres replayed the segment. This time, I caught it too, the pronoun error. The voice said Emma showed me instead of I showed you. That's not me talking, I said, my voice shaking with relief and rage. That's Melissa talking about me. Someone edited the recording to make it sound like I was giving instructions. Detective Chen grabbed the device and replayed it twice more. The audio's been spliced. You can hear the cut right before Emma showed me. Patterson's trying to frame both sisters now. Agent Torres frowned, studying the device. Our tech team already verified the authenticity. Your tech team missed it, Mr. Barnes interrupted. This is clearly manipulated evidence. We'll need an independent audio analysis done immediately. My phone buzzed with a text message. The number was blocked, but the message made my blood run cold. Emma, this is your sister. They're letting me send one message before they transfer me to federal holding. Whatever Patterson told them, whatever recordings he has, don't believe any of it. He's been planning this for months. Check my safety deposit box at First National, box 847. The key is taped under my jewelry box at home. Trust me one last time. Please. I stared at the screen, my hands trembling. Trust Melissa one last time, after everything she'd done? After years of manipulation and lies? But something in the message felt different. Desperate in a way that Melissa never allowed herself to be. Agent Torres, I said slowly, how long has Patterson been cooperating with the FBI? 6 months, why? And when did these alleged phone calls between him and me supposedly take place? She flipped through the file. March through May, according to his statement. Detective Chen's radio crackled again. All units, be advised, suspect Richard Patterson has escaped federal custody. Vehicle located abandoned on Route 55 southbound. Consider armed and dangerous. The room erupted into controlled chaos. Agent Torres was shouting orders into her radio while Detective Chen coordinated with hotel security. My parents sat frozen, watching their daughter's lives implode in real time. David grabbed my arm. Emma, if Patterson's running, that means everything he told them was lies, I finished. He was setting us both up to take the fall while he disappeared with the money. Outside, I could hear sirens wailing as police units responded to the manhunt. But all I could think about was Melissa's safety deposit box and what secrets it might contain. Because if my sister was telling the truth for once in her life, we were both in more danger than we'd realized. Agent Torres was still barking orders into her radio when my phone rang. Unknown number, but something made me answer it anyway. Emma. Patterson's voice was breathless, strained. Listen to me very carefully. Your sister isn't the only one who's been playing games. Where are you? I kept my voice steady despite my racing heart. Agent Torres had noticed my phone call and was frantically gesturing for me to keep him talking. Somewhere safe. For now. I could hear traffic in the background, the sound of a car door slamming. But that won't last long. The people I've been working with don't like loose ends. What people? Detective Chen had grabbed a notepad and was scribbling frantically. You think the FBI investigation into my law firm was random? You think they just stumbled across our financial irregularities? Patterson's laugh was bitter. Emma, your sister discovered something 6 months ago. Something that could bring down half the city council and 3 federal judges. My mouth went dry. What are you talking about? The Morrison and Associates accounts you were moving money from? They weren't just dormant client funds. They were money laundering operations for the Kozlov organization. Russian mob, Emma. Melissa figured it out when she was helping you cover your tracks. Agent Torres had gone completely still, her radio forgotten in her hand. The name Kozlov clearly meant something to her. She what? My voice cracked. Instead of reporting it like any sane person would do, she decided to blackmail them. Started demanding monthly payments to keep quiet about their Chicago operations. Patterson's voice was getting more distant, like he was moving away from his phone. When that worked, she got greedy. Started threatening to expose their judges unless they paid her more. Detective Chen was writing so fast her pen was smoking. David had gone white as paper, and my parents looked like they were witnessing their worst nightmare come to life. Why didn't you stop her? I demanded. Because she had evidence of my involvement too. The cover-up I helped with for your embezzlement? That made me complicit in discovering the money laundering operation. If Melissa went down, she was taking me with her. His breathing was getting heavier, like he was running. But 3 days ago, she made a mistake. She demanded $2 million as a final payment, or she'd give everything to the FBI. Agent Torres grabbed the phone from my hand and hit the speaker button. Patterson, this is Special Agent Torres. Where's Melissa Hartford right now? That's what I'm trying to tell you. His voice filled the conference room. They took her 20 minutes ago. Right out of federal custody. Your transport van was intercepted on Highway 94. Your agents are probably dead. The silence in the room was deafening. Agent Torres' face had gone ashen. Patterson, are you telling me the Kozlov organization has a federal prisoner? Her voice was deadly calm. I'm telling you that Victor Kozlov's son Dmitry personally called me 2 hours ago. He wanted to know exactly what Melissa had told the FBI, and exactly how much evidence she'd collected against their operation. My legs gave out. I collapsed into the nearest chair as the implications hit me. Melissa hadn't just been playing games with Patterson and me. She'd been blackmailing the Russian mob. And Emma? Patterson's voice continued through the phone speaker. They think you're her partner. They think you know everything she knows. Agent Torres was already coordinating with the tactical team through hand signals, but I barely noticed. All I could think about was Melissa's safety deposit box and what kind of evidence she'd been hiding there. Evidence that was apparently worth killing federal agents to retrieve. Agent Torres was coordinating the tactical response when my phone rang again. Different number this time, but my blood turned to ice when I heard the voice. Emma Hartford. The accent was thick, unmistakably Russian. My name is Dmitry Kozlov. I believe you know why I'm calling. Agent Torres frantically gestured for me to keep talking while she alerted the tech team to trace the call. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the phone steady. I don't know anything, I managed to say. Whatever my sister told you. Your sister has been very educational, Dmitry interrupted, his voice carrying a casual menace that made my skin crawl. She explained how you helped her access the Morrison accounts. How you identified which funds belonged to our organization. Very thorough work, Emma. That's not true. I never knew. She also mentioned your safety deposit box at First National Bank. Box 847, yes? The one containing copies of all our financial records, plus photographs of Judge Morrison accepting his monthly payments? My heart stopped. Melissa had been using my name, my identity, to hide her evidence. If the Kozlov organization thought I was her partner, thought I had access to information that could destroy them. Where's my sister? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Safe, for the moment. But her continued well-being depends entirely on your cooperation. I could hear background noise, machinery, maybe construction equipment. You have 2 hours to retrieve the contents of box 847 and bring them to the coordinates I'm about to text you. Come alone, or Melissa will be fed into a wood chipper, piece by piece. The line went dead. Seconds later, my phone buzzed with a text containing GPS coordinates that pointed to an industrial district on the south side of Chicago. Agent Torres immediately started barking orders. I need a full tactical team at those coordinates in 90 minutes. And get me blueprints for every building in a 6-block radius. You can't send Emma in there, David said, standing up abruptly. It's obviously a trap. Of course it's a trap, Agent Torres replied grimly. But it's also our only chance to save your sister and recover evidence in the biggest money laundering case in Illinois history. The Morrison accounts weren't just hiding mob money, they were funding campaign contributions to 12 state legislators and 3 federal judges. Mr. Barnes shook his head vigorously. Absolutely not. I won't allow my client to walk into a hostage situation with armed criminals. Then Melissa dies, I said quietly, surprising everyone including myself. And Victor Kozlov keeps buying judges and politicians with money stolen from pension funds and charity organizations. Detective Chen looked up from her notepad. Emma, we don't even know if the safety deposit box exists. This could all be an elaborate setup to get you alone so they can eliminate the last witness. Only one way to find out. I stood up, my legs steadier than they'd been all evening. Agent Torres, I need that key from Melissa's apartment. Emma, no. Mom's voice cracked. I can't lose both my daughters in one night. I walked over and knelt beside her chair. For the first time in years, I saw past the disappointment and criticism in her eyes to the genuine terror underneath. She'd spent 28 years watching me fail at everything while Melissa succeeded effortlessly. But right now, I was the only one who could save the daughter she'd always loved more. I'll be careful, Mom. I promise. Agent Torres was studying building schematics on her tablet. The coordinates point to an abandoned textile factory. Multiple exits, good sight lines, but also plenty of places for snipers to hide. She looked up at me with something that might have been respect. If you're really going to do this, Emma, we'll have 50 agents providing overwatch. But once you're inside that building, you're on your own until we can determine Melissa's location. My phone buzzed with another text from Dmitry, 97 minutes remaining. And Emma? Your federal friends are welcome to watch from a distance. But if we see anyone except you approaching the factory, we'll start mailing pieces of Melissa to your parents' house. The room fell silent. Through the conference room window, I could see news helicopters circling overhead like electronic vultures, broadcasting our family's destruction to the world. But somewhere in that abandoned factory, my sister was waiting for me to save her life. For the first time in our relationship, Melissa needed me more than I needed her. And I wasn't going to let her down. The key was exactly where Melissa said it would be, taped under her jewelry box in a bedroom that looked like it belonged in a magazine spread. Agent Torres had given me exactly 12 minutes to search the apartment while the tactical team set up surveillance around First National Bank. I found myself staring at framed photos on her nightstand, pictures of us as kids, building sandcastles at Lake Michigan, dressed up for Halloween, opening Christmas presents. In every single photo, Melissa's smile was perfect while mine looked forced or caught mid-blink. Even our childhood memories had been curated to make her look better. Emma, we need to move. Detective Chen appeared in the doorway. Traffic cameras show 3 black SUVs circling the bank. They're watching us watch them. The safety deposit box was larger than I'd expected, filled with manila envelopes marked with dates and initials. My hand shook as I pulled out the first folder, photographs of Judge Morrison accepting a briefcase from a man with distinctive facial tattoos. The timestamp showed last Tuesday, 3:47 p.m. Jesus Christ, Agent Torres whispered, looking over my shoulder. She documented everything. The next envelope contained bank records showing regular transfers from Morrison and Associates to offshore accounts linked to shell companies in the Cayman Islands. The amounts were staggering, $12 million over 8 months, all filtered through the dormant client accounts I'd been manipulating. But it was the third envelope that made my blood run cold. Audio transcripts of recorded conversations between Melissa and various officials, dated back to February. She hadn't stumbled across the money laundering operation while helping me cover up embezzlement. She discovered it first, then manipulated me into accessing those specific accounts so she'd have a paper trail that implicated both of us. She planned this from the beginning, I said, my voice hollow with realization. The financial crisis, the embezzlement, everything. She needed a fall guy who could access the Morrison accounts, and I was perfect. Agent Torres was photographing documents with practiced efficiency. Emma, look at this. She handed me a handwritten letter addressed to my dearest sister Emma. The handwriting was unmistakably Melissa's flowing script. Asterisk, if you're reading this, it means something has gone terribly wrong. I know you hate me right now, you have every right to. But everything I did was to protect you from what I discovered about our father's business connections, asterisk. Asterisk, Dad's construction company hasn't been building shopping centers for the past 3 years. He's been laundering money through fake development projects, all coordinated through Morrison and Associates. The Kozlov organization owns him, Emma. They own our whole family, asterisk. Asterisk, when I found out, I tried to get evidence to bring them down. But I needed someone with legitimate access to Morrison's accounts, someone they wouldn't suspect. I'm sorry I made you into a criminal, but it was the only way to get close enough to gather proof, asterisk. Asterisk, the wedding was supposed to be my exit strategy, marry David, disappear with the evidence, then turn everything over to the FBI from a safe location. But if you're reading this, something went wrong, asterisk. Asterisk box 847 contains everything you need to destroy the Kozlov organization and save our family. But Emma, you have to get Dad out of Chicago tonight. They'll kill him the moment they realize what we've done, asterisk. Asterisk, I love you. I've always loved you, even when I was too twisted up inside to show it properly, asterisk. Your sister, Melissa. My phone rang. Dmitry Kozlov again, his voice carrying deadly patience. Miss Hartford, you now have 43 minutes to reach our location. I trust you found your sister's little treasure trove in lightning? Agent Torres was frantically signaling her team through the bank's windows. Outside, I could see unmarked vehicles taking positions throughout the financial district. I have the evidence, I said carefully. Excellent. Oh, and Emma? We've decided to expand our guest list. Your father is here with us now. Such a lovely family reunion we're planning. The line went dead, leaving me staring at Agent Torres's grim expression. Dad was with them. Melissa was with them. And I was walking into a trap that had been 20 years in the making. The abandoned textile factory looked like a monument to industrial decay, its broken windows staring out at the Chicago skyline like dead eyes. Agent Torres had positioned her team in a 3-block perimeter, but as I walked across the empty parking lot with Melissa's evidence tucked under my arm, I felt completely alone. My phone buzzed with a final text from Dmitry, loading Doc B. Come alone. Your family is waiting. The metal door groaned open before I could knock. A man with prison tattoos covering his neck gestured me inside with a pistol, his face expressionless as carved stone. The factory floor stretched out before us, filled with rusted machinery and shadows that seemed to move independently of their sources. In the center of the space, 3 folding chairs had been arranged under a single flickering light. Melissa sat in the middle chair, her wedding dress torn and stained, her hands zip-tied behind her back. To her left, Dad slumped forward with blood trickling from a cut above his eye, his bow tie now serving as a makeshift gag. But it was the man in the third chair who made my stomach drop. David. Surprise, Emma, he called out, his voice echoing through the cavernous space. But this wasn't the devastated groom from the hotel conference room. This David looked relaxed, almost amused, like he was enjoying a private joke. I don't understand. I stopped 20 feet away, clutching the evidence folder against my chest. You were helping the FBI. I was helping myself, he corrected, standing up and brushing dust off his tuxedo jacket. Did you really think it was coincidence that I met your sister on a dating app? That I happened to be the perfect mark for her exit strategy? Dmitry Kozlov emerged from the shadows behind the chairs, a slight man in an expensive coat who looked more like a college professor than a mob boss. His smile was genuinely warm as he approached me. Miss Hartford, thank you for coming. Your punctuality is appreciated. He gestured toward David with obvious pride. I believe you know my nephew. The pieces clicked together with sickening clarity. David's last name wasn't Morrison, it was Kozlova, anglicized when his family immigrated 15 years ago. The sweet, animal shelter volunteering accountant was Russian mob royalty. The entire relationship was surveillance, David continued conversationally. Uncle Dmitry wanted someone close to your family after your father's construction company started skimming money from their development projects. When Melissa began her blackmail scheme, it became personal. I looked at Dad, seeing him clearly for the first time. Robert Hartford, respected businessman and pillar of the community, slumped in a folding chair with mob blood on his face. How many shopping centers had never been built? How many city contracts had been awarded through briefcases full of cash? The evidence, please, Dmitry extended his hand politely. All of it. Let them go first, I said, though my voice shook with fear. David laughed, the sound sharp and metallic in the empty factory. Emma, you're not in a position to negotiate. Your sister has been feeding information about our operations to federal investigators for 6 months. Your father has been stealing from us for 3 years. And you've been documenting our financial transactions through Morrison and Associates since February. She didn't know what she was doing. Melissa spoke for the first time, her voice hoarse and desperate. Emma was just trying to pay her bills. She never knew about the money laundering. Quiet. Dimitri's voice remained polite, but something cold flickered behind his eyes. Miss Hartford, the evidence folder. Now. I looked at my sister, mascara streaked and terrified in her ruined wedding dress. At my father, who'd apparently been living a double life for decades. At David, whose betrayal felt like a physical wound. Through the factory's broken windows, I could see the distant lights of Agent Torres's command post. 50 federal agents, waiting for my signal. But one wrong move, and my family would be dead before backup could reach us. I held out the folder, then pulled it back at the last second. There's something else you need to know, I said, buying time I didn't have. About Judge Morrison's suicide this morning. Dimitri's smile faltered. What suicide? He left a confession. 20 pages detailing your entire Chicago operation, including David's real identity. The lie came surprisingly easily. Agent Torres has copies. David's face went white. In the distance, I heard the distinctive sound of helicopter rotors approaching fast. It was time to find out if my federal backup was as good as their word. The helicopter searchlight blazed through the factory windows like divine intervention, flooding the space with harsh white light. Dimitri's polite mask finally slipped as he barked orders in Russian to his men positioned throughout the building. The confession is real, I continued, my voice gaining strength as I heard tactical boots hitting the ground outside. Judge Morrison detailed every payment, every case you fixed, every life you destroyed. Including how David seduced my sister specifically to monitor our family. David pulled out a gun, his friendly accountant facade completely gone. Uncle, we need to leave. Now. But Dimitri wasn't retreating. His cold eyes fixed on me with the intensity of a predator who'd cornered his prey. Miss Hartford, even if this confession exists, you've made one critical error in your calculations. What's that? You assumed we needed to keep you alive. The sound of shattering glass erupted from 6 directions as Agent Torres's team crashed through every window simultaneously. Red laser dots danced across the factory floor like deadly fireflies, but Dimitri's men had already taken cover behind the industrial machinery. Federal agents. Drop your weapons. Gunfire erupted in sharp, controlled bursts. I dove behind a rusted loom, still clutching Melissa's evidence folder, as bullets sparked off metal surfaces around me. Through the chaos, I could see Dad and Melissa trying to work their chairs toward cover, still zip-tied and helpless. Emma. Melissa screamed over the gunfire. The folder. Destroy it. I looked down at the manila envelopes in my hands, evidence that could bring down judges, politicians, and organized crime figures across 3 states. Evidence that could also destroy what remained of our family when the full scope of Dad's involvement came to light. A bullet whined past my head, embedding itself in the concrete wall behind me. David was moving toward me with deadly purpose, using the machinery as cover while Agent Torres's team tried to establish clear lines of fire. Your sister's right, he called out, his voice carrying easily through the industrial chaos. Burn it all, Emma. Save yourself the embarrassment of watching your father go to prison for money laundering. Another burst of automatic gunfire echoed through the space. I heard Agent Torres shouting coordinates to her team, suspect behind the textile press, southeast corner. Watch for civilians. But David had stopped shooting. He stood 20 feet away, gun trained on me with practiced steadiness, waiting for my decision. Choose carefully, Emma, he said with the same gentle tone he'd used when explaining compound interest during our first dinner together. Your family's reputation, or justice for the pension funds we emptied. The charity money we stole. The small businesses we bankrupted. I thought about Mrs. Chen from the Vietnamese restaurant on 5th Street, who'd lost her life savings when her business loan was diverted into Kozlov accounts. About the teachers whose retirement fund had been systematically drained over 3 years. About Sarah Rodriguez, paralyzed because Melissa needed David available for her exit strategy. Emma, please, Melissa sobbed from across the factory floor. I'm sorry for everything. But destroying that evidence is the only way to protect Dad. Through the broken windows, I could see more federal vehicles arriving. The Chicago PD. News helicopters circling like mechanical vultures, ready to broadcast whatever decision I made to the world. Agent Torres appeared behind a concrete pillar, assault rifle trained on David. Hartford. Get down. I looked at the evidence folder one last time. Then I stood up, walked into the blazing helicopter spotlight, and held the manila envelopes high above my head where every camera could see them. This ends tonight, I said, my voice carrying clearly through the sudden silence. All of it. And I handed Judge Morrison's confession, Victor Kozlov's financial records, and my father's construction company receipts directly to Agent Torres, sealing the fate of everyone who'd underestimated Emma Hartford for the last time.